On a Tuesday afternoon, I watched my mother's car, a car I had bought her with my own bonus money, disappear out of the driveway. My sister was driving it. A week later, I saw the listing on Facebook Marketplace. She had sold it for cash and kept every dollar, so I did the only thing that made sense. I called the internet provider, then the streaming service, then the insurance company. By Wednesday morning, the house had gone silent. My phone started ringing, 44 times in 3 days. And not once did anyone ask where her car was. Because here's what those 44 calls didn't tell you. I was the one who bought the car outright, cash from a bonus I earned at a job my family never asked about. I was also the one paying for the internet that kept my sister's boutique ideas alive, the streaming service my parents watched every night, and the insurance on a house I hadn't lived in for years. They didn't call to apologize. They called because the money had stopped. And when it did, the mask came off. This isn't a story about a car. It's about what happens when the person holding up the roof decides to let it fall. I was 12 the first time I realized my family had two different kinds of love. My sister wanted a guitar for her birthday, so my father bought her a Fender, a real one, plus lessons for 6 months. I wanted a graphing calculator for my advanced math class. I got a used one from a pawn shop with someone else's name scratched into the back. Nobody said I didn't deserve a new one. They just said, "You're resourceful, you'll make it work." And I did, because that's what I learned to do. By the time I was 16, I had a job at a grocery store bagging groceries. My paycheck went to my own clothes, my own school supplies, my own phone bill. My sister's paycheck, when she had one, went to whatever she wanted. My parents called it letting her enjoy being young. They called my arrangement building character. The character I built was an iron backbone and a private bank account. I graduated high school with a scholarship that covered tuition and nothing else. My parents threw a party for my sister that same weekend. She had just been accepted into the same college, but she was going to defer for a year to find herself. The party had catered food and a photo backdrop. I got a handshake and a reminder to fill out my FAFSA on time. So I did what I always did. I filled out the forms, took out the loans, worked 3 jobs, and showed up. College was where the gap became a canyon. My sister's dorm room was furnished by my parents, new bedding, a mini fridge, a printer, decorations. My dorm room had a mattress I found on the curb, a desk lamp from Goodwill, and the same calculator with the scratched-off name. She called me once that first semester. It was to ask if I knew where to get cheap concert tickets. I didn't. But while she was taking gap year vacations, I was taking extra credits. While she was posting photos from brunch, I was clocking into the mailroom at 5 in the morning. While my parents were funding her exploration phase, I was teaching myself how to build websites, run social media campaigns, and write copy that actually sold things. I didn't know it then, but I was building a skill set that would eventually make me the highest earner in my family. The first big break came senior year. I landed a remote internship with a marketing firm based in a city 3 states away. It paid $15 an hour, which felt like a fortune. I worked from my cramped apartment, sometimes until 2 in the morning, learning how to optimize ad spend and write emails that people actually opened. My boss noticed. By graduation, they offered me a full-time position with a starting salary of $52,000. $52,000. To my family, that was incomprehensible. My father made 41 at his best year. I took the job, moved to that city, lived in a studio apartment with a window that faced a brick wall. But I was paying my own rent, my own insurance, my own everything. And for the first time, I felt like I was running toward something instead of just surviving. My parents started calling more often. At first, it was just to check in. Then it became, "Hey, can you help your sister with her resume? She's thinking about applying for jobs." Then, "Your mother's car is acting up. You know a lot about that stuff, right?" I helped. Partly because I wanted to be a good daughter, partly because I was still desperate for their approval. By 25, I had been promoted twice. My salary hit $87,000. I had savings. I had a retirement account. I had a life that looked nothing like the one I'd left behind. And my family had gotten comfortable. It started small. I added my parents to my phone plan because their bill was too high. Then I let them use my streaming login. Then I started covering the internet at their house because my sister needed it for her online boutique research. I told myself it was temporary, that they'd get on their feet, that this was what family did. But the bills kept coming, and I kept paying them. Then the car thing happened. My mother's old sedan finally died. She called me crying, saying she couldn't afford a new one, that she'd have to take the bus everywhere, that my father's truck couldn't be used for groceries. I had just received a $10,000 bonus from a campaign I'd led. I told her I'd buy her a car. Not a luxury car, a sensible, reliable, certified pre-owned Honda Civic. 4 years old, 40,000 miles, clean history. I paid cash. I put the title in her name because I trusted her. I thought that gesture would change things, that they'd finally see me, that the daughter they'd sent to the pawn shop calculator would be celebrated as the one who showed up when it mattered. Instead, it became the thing that broke everything. My sister saw that car and something shifted in her. Not gratitude that her mother had reliable transportation. Not pride that her sibling had done something generous. Envy. Pure, corrosive envy that I had the money to buy a car when she had never bought anything bigger than a handbag. She started making comments. Must be nice to have that kind of cash. I guess I chose the wrong career path. Mom, you're so lucky. I wish someone would buy me a car. I heard it all. I ignored most of it. Until the Tuesday afternoon when I came home from a business trip and checked my phone. There was a text from a neighbor. Hey, saw your mom's car being picked up by a tow truck earlier. Everything okay? I called my mother. No answer, called my sister. No answer, called the house phone. My father picked up. Where's mom's car? I asked. Long pause. Your sister sold it, he said. She needed the money for her boutique. I stood in my kitchen, still holding my suitcase, and felt the floor tilt. She sold my car, I said. The car I bought with my money that I put in Mom's name. She said she'd pay your mother back. It's fine. Family helps family. I hung up, and then I started making calls, not to yell, not to negotiate, to cancel every single payment I was making for them, the internet, the streaming, the phone plan, the insurance. All of it. 44 calls in 3 days. That's how many they made trying to reach me after the services stopped. But here's the part they didn't see coming. I had already blocked their numbers, not out of anger, out of certainty. I was done. And that was the moment the mask finally fell. The first call came at 7:14 a.m. the next morning. I watched the number flash on my screen and let it ring. Then another at 7:16. Then 7:18. By noon, I had 18 missed calls from my mother, 12 from my father, 7 from my sister, and 3 from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't answer any of them. I knew what they wanted. They wanted me to turn everything back on, to pretend the car sale was a misunderstanding, to go back to being the quiet provider who never complained. But here's what they didn't know. I had already done something they never expected. I had called my phone carrier and removed every authorized user except myself. I had canceled the shared streaming plan and started my own account. I had called the insurance company and explained that I was no longer covering the house address. The internet provider asked if I wanted to transfer the account to another resident. I said no, just shut it off. By Wednesday evening, my mother's house was a dead zone. No Wi-Fi, no cable, no way to stream. No way to call except through the one cell phone my father still had, which I also paid for but hadn't canceled yet. I left it active. I wanted them to be able to reach me, but only on my terms. The voicemails started filling up. The first few were my mother, gentle, confused, asking if something had happened. Sweetheart, did you forget to pay the bill? The internet's out and I can't get through to customer service. Then my father's voice, harder, demanding to know what I had done. Then my sisters, angry, cursing, calling me selfish. Then back to my mother, now crying. I listened to every single one. Not because I was cruel, because I needed to remind myself why I was doing this. Because the minute I heard my mother's tears, the old programming kicked in. Fix it. Make it better. You're the responsible one. You don't need an apology. You just need to keep the peace. That voice had driven me for 26 years. I shut it off. I deleted the voicemails. I went to work. At the office, nobody knew what was happening. I sat through a 2-hour strategy meeting, presented a campaign for a client in the health and wellness space, got approval on the budget. My team told me I looked tired. I said I hadn't been sleeping well. That wasn't a lie. But the calls didn't stop. The next day, my aunt called, then my grandmother, then a cousin I hadn't spoken to in 3 years, each one with a variation of the same message. Your mother is heartbroken. Your sister is devastated. What is wrong with you? Family doesn't do this. I listened politely. I told each one the same thing. I'd be happy to explain if you want to hear my side, but only if you're willing to listen without interrupting. None of them took me up on it. So I stopped answering. By day 4, the number of missed calls had climbed past 40. My phone log showed 44 attempts in 72 hours. I documented it. Screenshots. A log in my notes app. I didn't know why at the time. Maybe I wanted proof. Maybe I wanted to show someone someday what it looked like when a family realized their safety net had vanished. Then the text started. Angry at first, then desperate, then bargaining. Just turn the internet back on for 1 month. We'll figure it out. I have a job interview tomorrow. I need to check my email. Your father's blood pressure medicine needs to be ordered online. This is dangerous. Please, I'm begging you. That last one was from my mother. I stared at it for 20 minutes. I almost caved. I actually opened the provider app and started the reactivation process. But then I stopped because something snapped into place. I had done this. I had set a boundary. And a boundary that you fold on the first time someone cries is not a boundary. It's a suggestion. I closed the app. I wrote back one message to my mother. I will help you get your medicine ordered at a pharmacy or library, but the internet stays off until we talk about the car. And I mean really talk, not you crying while I fix everything. She didn't reply, but my sister did. A long, vicious text full of insults and accusations, calling me a narcissist, saying I only cared about money, saying I was ruining the family over a used Honda. A used Honda that I bought with cash, that she sold for $4,000 less than it was worth, that she spent on a pop-up boutique that lasted exactly 6 weeks before folding. I found out about the boutique from a mutual friend who felt bad for me. She told me the whole story. My sister had leased a storefront, bought inventory she couldn't sell, and burned through the car money in under 2 months. When the boutique failed, she told my parents she was pivoting to e-commerce. That's why she needed the internet so badly. She was trying to salvage her business from the wreckage she'd created. And they knew. My parents knew. They had known for weeks. They had covered for her. Let me keep paying for everything while she blew through the proceeds of a car I had given them as a gift. That was the moment the last thread of guilt snapped. I stopped feeling bad. I stopped feeling sorry. I felt something else entirely, something cold and clean, clarity. I called my grandmother, the only relative who had ever treated me fairly. I told her the whole story, from the calculator to the car to the 44 calls. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said something I will never forget. Your father was always like that. He picked favorites, and he never could stand being held accountable. She told me that my sister had always been the golden child, that my parents had bylaid her out of bad decisions since she was a teenager, that they had borrowed money from my grandmother to cover my sister's mistakes more than once, and that no one in the family had ever had the courage to stop enabling her. You did what none of us could do, my grandmother said. You drew a line, don't let them erase it. I hung up feeling something I hadn't felt in years, supported. But my family wasn't done. They found a new way to escalate. They showed up at my apartment on a Saturday morning, all 3 of them. My mother crying, my father holding a bouquet of flowers like a prop, my sister standing behind them with her arms crossed, barely containing her rage. I opened the door because I knew if I didn't, they'd start pounding. And I had neighbors. Please, my mother said, just come home for dinner. Let's talk about this like a family. I looked at her, then at my father, then at my sister. Okay, I said. Let's talk, right here on the porch. You first, Mom. Tell me you didn't know she sold the car. Silence. Tell me you didn't cover for her while she spent the money. More silence. My father stepped forward. This isn't helping anyone. We're here to apologize. I turned to him. Okay, apologize for what specifically? He opened his mouth, closed it. I watched him realize he couldn't name a single thing because he didn't think he had done anything wrong. The bouquet was a prop. The apology was a transaction. They were here to get the services restored, not to make amends. I can't do this right now, I said. I have plans. I stepped back inside, closed the door, locked it. Through the wood, I heard my sister scream. You're dead to us, do you hear me? Dead. I walked to my kitchen, made coffee, sat down at my laptop, and started writing. Not to them, for myself. A document that listed every dollar I had spent on that family in the last 5 years. Phone bills, internet, insurance, streaming, the car, birthday gifts, Christmas gifts, emergency loans they never paid back. The total came out to $41,300. I saved the document and closed the laptop. And then I did something that would change everything. I called a lawyer. The lawyer listened to my story for 20 minutes without interrupting. Then she said something I never expected. Your sister committed fraud. She sold a vehicle that wasn't hers to sell. The title may have been in your mother's name, but the purchase was yours. You have receipts, bank statements, the bill of sale. That's conversion, civil theft. She explained that I could sue. I could recover the value of the car. I could potentially get damages. I could force my sister to admit in court what she had done. But she also warned me. Family lawsuits destroy relationships permanently. Are you ready for that? I told her the relationship was already destroyed. I just needed someone to confirm it wasn't my fault. She smiled a little. Then let's send a letter. The letter was formal, professional. It outlined the facts, the purchase, the gifting intent, the unauthorized sale, the proceeds converted to personal use. It stated that I was entitled to restitution in the amount of $12,000, the fair market value of the car plus legal fees. It gave my sister 30 days to respond before I filed a claim in small claims court. I mailed it certified, return receipt requested. The response came in 6 days, not from my sister, from my father. He called me from a number I didn't recognize. His voice was different, not angry, scared. Your sister is pregnant, he said. She's broke. She has no insurance. She can't pay you. You're going to destroy your nephew's life over a car. I sat in silence. The manipulation was so transparent it was almost impressive. Pregnant. Of course she was pregnant. The perfect get-out-of-jail-free card. Pull the sympathy cord and make me the villain for demanding accountability. I asked calmly, when is she due? 6 months. Then she had time to sell my car 2 months ago, before she was even pregnant. That doesn't change anything. My father's voice cracked. She made a mistake. She's young. She's scared. We're all scared. Please just let this go. I thought about the 44 calls, the texts, the ambush at my apartment, the bouquet of flowers that was supposed to erase everything. Dad, I said, I will drop the legal claim on one condition. She writes me a letter, handwritten, admitting she sold the car without permission, apologizing, and promising to repay me within 2 years. Silence. I can't make her do that, he said. I know, that's the point. I hung up. The next day, my grandmother called again. She had heard through the family grapevine about the pregnancy. She also had information I didn't. Your sister isn't pregnant, my grandmother said. She told your mother that to get sympathy. It's a lie. I froze. How do you know? Because I called her doctor's office pretending to be your mother. They said there's no record of a pregnancy, no appointments, no nothing. My grandmother, the quiet observer, had gone full investigator. She had done what no one else in the family would do. She had checked the facts. I sat with that for a moment. My sister had faked a pregnancy to stop me from pursuing the legal claim. My parents had believed her, or maybe they knew it was a lie and went along with it. Either way, they had chosen deception over honesty. I didn't expose the lie. Not yet. I kept it in my pocket like a hidden card. But I started digging deeper. I called a private investigator I found online. Cost me $500 for a basic background check. What came back was worse than I imagined. My sister had a history, 2 evictions, 3 credit cards and collections, a lapsed driver's license, a small claims judgment against her from a former landlord. She had been financially chaotic for years. My parents had been hiding it, cleaning up her messes with my money. I was their cleanup fund. The PI also found something else. My sister had taken out a credit card in my mother's name 2 years ago and never paid it. The collection agency had been calling my parents' house for months. My mother had been paying the minimum each month from her own small pension, hiding it from my father. And my sister had never apologized, never paid a dime. I closed the file and sat in the dark of my apartment. The sun had gone down. My phone was silent. I had blocked everyone except my grandmother and a few trusted friends. I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. I was empty. The kind of empty that comes after you've drained every emotional resource trying to fix something that was never yours to fix. I had spent years believing that if I just gave enough, proved enough, showed up enough, they would eventually see me. They would love me the way I needed to be loved. But you cannot earn love. You can only receive it, and they had never offered it. The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to sue my sister, not because I forgave her, but because I realized that dragging her into court would keep me tethered to them for another year or more, and I was done being tethered. I sent my father one final text. I'm not filing the lawsuit, but I'm also not coming back. Not for holidays, not for emergencies, not for anything. The money stops. The contact stops. Do not call me again. He called 17 times in the next 24 hours. I blocked his number. My mother sent a long email, pleading, guilt-laden, full of phrases like, "What will people think?" and "You're breaking my heart." I read it once, deleted it. My sister sent nothing. No apology, no admission, just silence from the person who had started all of this. That's when I understood the real hierarchy. In their world, my sister could do no wrong because she was the fragile one who needed protection. And I could do no right because I was the strong one who needed nothing. But I was done playing my assigned role. I took the $41,300 document I had created, and I did something permanent with it. I transferred my emergency savings into a separate account that none of them knew existed. I changed my phone number. I unfriended every family member on social media except my grandmother. And then I called my grandmother. "I'm going no contact," I said. "For real this time." "Good," she said. "It's about time." She told me she had done the same thing with her own sister 40 years ago, walked away and never looked back. People will call you cruel, they'll say you're heartless, but they're not the ones who lived it. Only you know what it cost you to stay. I cried for the first time that night, not because I was sad, because I was relieved. The next few weeks were strange, quiet. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for a family member to show up at my office or my door, but nobody came. The calls stopped. The emails stopped. My phone was silent in a way it had never been before. I started therapy. The therapist asked me to describe my childhood in 3 words. I said, background, conditional, exhausting. She nodded. You were parentified. You were the emotional and financial caregiver for people who should have been caring for you. That's not a child's job. I learned a new word that day. Enmeshment. When boundaries between family members are so blurred that you can't tell where their needs end and yours begin. I had been enmeshed for 26 years. The therapist gave me an exercise. Write a letter to my parents that I would never send. Say everything. Hold nothing back. Then burn it. I wrote 6 pages. I read it aloud to my empty apartment. I burned it in the sink. And then I started building something new. Act 3 was about to begin, but not the way I expected. Because just when I thought the story was over, a new piece of information arrived. Something that would change everything I thought I knew about who I was and where I came from. It came in the form of a DNA test my grandmother had taken years ago, and a secret she had been keeping since before I was born. My grandmother handed me a worn envelope over coffee at her kitchen table. "I should have told you years ago," she said, "but I was afraid." Inside was a DNA test result from a company I'd never heard of. The date was 12 years old, and the names on the page made no sense. "You're not your father's biological daughter," she said. "Your mother had an affair, your father knew. He agreed to raise you, but he never forgave her, and he never forgave you." The words hit like a physical weight. I stared at the paper, at the genetic markers, at the column that read probability of paternity, 0%. "I didn't find out until after you were born," my grandmother continued. "Your mother confessed to me when you were 6 months old. I begged her to tell the truth. She said it would destroy the family. She chose to keep the secret." I thought about every slight, every gift my sister received that I didn't, every "you're the independent one," every bus ride, every handshake instead of a hug. It wasn't favoritism, it was resentment. He had been raising another man's child for 26 years, and he had never, not once, let me forget that I didn't truly belong. "I'm sorry," my grandmother said. "I should have told you when you turned 18, but I thought if you didn't know, you could still have a family. I see now that you never had one." I didn't cry. I was past crying. I just felt the last puzzle piece slide into place, and the picture was finally clear. "Who is my biological father?" I asked. She told me his name, a man I had never met, a professor my mother had a brief relationship with before she married. He had moved overseas. He had never known I existed. I spent the next week processing. I didn't confront my parents. There was no point. They had built their entire family dynamic on a lie, and I was done cleaning up their messes. Instead, I made a choice. I found my biological father on a social media platform. He lived in Canada. He had a family, 2 grown children, a quiet life. I wrote him a short message. "I think I'm your daughter. I don't want anything from you. I just wanted you to know." He replied within hours. His words were careful, kind, shocked. He had never known. My mother had never told him. He asked if he could call. We spoke for 3 hours that night. He apologized for being absent, even though it wasn't his fault. He told me about his parents, my genetic grandparents, who had died before I was born. He sent me photos of them. I saw my own jawline in my grandmother's face, my own eyes in my grandfather's. I had a genetic family I had never met, and they had been out there this whole time. That discovery changed something fundamental. The family I had been begging to love me was not my whole story. They were just the chapter I had been trapped in. There was a whole library I had never been allowed to explore. I decided to meet my biological father, not immediately, but eventually. I wanted to take it slow, to build something real, not rush into another performance of belonging. Meanwhile, the silence from my former family continued. 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, no calls, no texts. The only update came through my grandmother. My sister had moved in with a boyfriend in another state. My parents were struggling financially. The house had gone into foreclosure. The boutique was long gone. I felt nothing, not satisfaction, not guilt, just the quiet confirmation that I had made the right choice. I threw myself into my work, got another promotion, started my own side consulting business, traveled to places I had only seen in photos, built a life that had nothing to do with them. And then, 8 months after the cutoff, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, my mother's handwriting. It said, "I know your grandmother told you. I am so sorry. I was young and scared, and I made a terrible choice. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I have always loved you, even if I showed it badly, even if I let your father's resentment shape everything. You deserved better. I failed you. I am sorry." No demands, no requests for money, no mention of the car, just an apology. I read it 3 times. I felt the old pull to respond, to fix, to make it all okay. But I had learned something in those 8 months of silence. I had learned that an apology without changed behavior is just theater. I didn't reply. But I did something else. I sent my biological father a plane ticket. He came to visit for a weekend. We walked through a park and talked about everything and nothing. He told me he had always wanted a daughter. I told him I had always wanted a father who saw me. We didn't try to force a perfect relationship. We just started where we were, honest. No debt, no guilt, no performance. 6 weeks later, I got another piece of news. My sister had been arrested for writing bad checks. She had been using my mother's identity again. This time, the bank pressed charges. My parents called my grandmother, begging for my number. She refused to give it. I found out through a public records search. I felt no urge to intervene. The last thing that happened, the final surprise, came from my grandmother's lawyer. She had passed away quietly in her sleep. At her funeral, I stood alone in the back. My parents were there, but they didn't approach me. My sister was not there, still out on bail. The lawyer handed me an envelope after the service. Inside was a letter from my grandmother, written 6 years earlier. By the time you read this, I will be gone. I have watched you carry a weight that was never yours to carry. You were the strongest person in that family, and they punished you for it. But I want you to know, you were always my favorite. Not because you earned it, because you were the only one who ever tried to be good without being paid for it. She had left me her house, a small, paid-off house in a quiet neighborhood, and a note that said, "Now you have a place that is truly yours." I sold my apartment. I moved into her house. I kept her garden alive. I set up my office in the spare bedroom, and I started writing. Not to my parents, not about revenge, about what it means to build a life after you stop waiting for someone else to hand you one. My sister never paid me back for the car. She never apologized. My parents never acknowledged what they did. But somewhere along the way, I stopped needing them to. Because the person I was waiting to become was already standing in front of me. I just had to stop looking back long enough to see her. When I tell this story now, people always ask the same question. Do you regret cutting them off? And the answer is no, but not for the reason they expect. It's not because I'm angry or bitter or seeking revenge. It's because I finally understand that love was never supposed to feel like a transaction I kept losing. I think about the 44 calls sometimes, not with pain, with wonder, because those calls told me everything I needed to know about the family I came from. They didn't call to check on me. They called because a service went dark. They called because their comfort was interrupted. They called because they had to face the silence I had been living in my whole life. And that silence taught me something. The people who are supposed to love you unconditionally are often the ones who attach the most conditions. They love what you provide, not who you are. They love your usefulness, not your presence. And when you stop being useful, they stop pretending. But here's the part that still surprises me. Walking away didn't make me cold. It made me careful. It made me pay attention to who shows up when there's nothing to gain. Those are the people worth keeping. My biological father still calls every Sunday. He sends me articles he thinks I'll find interesting. He asks about my work, my garden, my cat. He doesn't ask for anything. He just shows up. And I'm learning that this is what normal feels like. This is what love looks like when it's not a performance. My grandmother's house has become a kind of sanctuary. I planted roses in her garden, the same variety she used to grow. Every time I see them bloom, I think about what she said. You were always my favorite, not because you earned it, because you were the only one who ever tried to be good without being paid for it. I try to live by that now, not for approval, because it's who I actually am. There's a question I ask myself whenever I feel that old pull to go back, to fix, to explain. Would I want my own daughter to feel the way I felt? And the answer is always no. So I don't go back. I stay here, in the life I built with my own hands, in the house my grandmother trusted me with, in the quiet that finally feels like peace. If you're watching this and you recognize something familiar, something in your own family that feels broken in a way that can't be fixed, here's what I want you to know. You are not responsible for the choices they made. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. And walking away is not the same as giving up. Sometimes it's the first honest thing you've ever done. My name is not important. What matters is that somewhere out there, Someone needed to hear this. That the person you're becoming is worth more than the person they wanted you to be. And that the silence after the 44th call might be the loudest invitation to finally live your own life. If this story reached you at the right moment, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more. And remember, you don't have to keep showing up to a table where you're only welcome as the meal.